The galaxy was vast. Stars, planets, and alien civilizations spread across the universe like dust in the wind. Every planet had its stories, its heroes, its myths. But there was one planet whose stories were unlike any others. That planet was Earth. To the aliens in the farthest reaches of space, Earth was a legend, a story told in hushed whispers, a place that might never have existed. Earth was a myth, and those who spoke of it were considered fools. But one man, Commander Rune, knew better. It all started on the planet Volaris, at an academy for the elite of the galaxy. Young cadets sat in rows, listening to their instructors speak about the great heroes of the universe. The Clarethians, the Trinter, and the Kylorians. Every race had its place in galactic history, but Earth was always left out of the textbooks. Some races never mattered in the grand scheme, the instructor said, tapping the hologram of Earth, a small, pale blue dot in the corner of the galaxy. This is Earth, home to a primitive species, a species that no longer exists. The cadets chuckled. Humans were never more than a footnote, another cadet remarked. A few stories, some strange beliefs, but nothing more. They laughed again. No one really took Earth seriously. But at the front of the room, sitting quietly with his arms crossed, was Commander Rune. His expression was grim. He had seen what no one else had. He knew the truth. Rune had been a young officer, new to the galaxy, when he first heard of the human race. Like the others, he had laughed it off, thinking it was just a silly story. Humans, after all, were no match for the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. But when Rune had been assigned to a mission on the edge of the universe, everything changed. He and his crew had discovered an ancient signal, a strange, broken message. It was human in origin, or so they thought. The signal was old, too old, and the galaxy had erased all records of Earth, or so they believed. Yet, as they decoded the message, Rune heard words that made him stop dead in his tracks. "If you can hear this, we are still here." The cadets at the academy had no idea what Rune had seen, no idea what he had heard. They were still laughing, still mocking Earth, unaware that one of their greatest heroes had once walked the very planet they called a myth. Commander Rune raised his hand. The room fell silent. It wasn't often that the respected commander spoke during lectures. "Commander Rune," the instructor asked, surprised. Rune stood. His voice, calm but heavy, echoed in the large hall. "I was once sent to the farthest edges of the galaxy," he said, "to explore, to discover, and to report. But what I found there changed everything." He paused, looking at the faces of the young cadets. Some of them smirked, thinking he was about to tell another exaggerated story. Others looked bored. Rune's eyes darkened. He couldn't hold back anymore. "I found the truth about Earth. And what I saw, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. But I will." The cadets looked at each other, unsure of what to think. This wasn't the usual lecture. Rune wasn't known for stories. He was known for facts, for discipline, for being a warrior. Yet here he was, talking about Earth as if it was real. "What do you mean, sir?" one cadet asked, raising an eyebrow. Rune turned his gaze to the holoscreen behind him. The image of Earth was still there, small and insignificant. "I met a human," Rune said softly, "one of the last humans, and he showed me something that no alien could explain." The room went silent. The cadets leaned forward, some even forgetting to breathe. Rune's voice grew colder. "This human told me that Earth wasn't just a myth. It wasn't a dead planet. Earth had fought wars. Wars against alien invaders, against horrors we've never faced. And in the end, Earth survived. Earth won." Rune's words hit like a shockwave. "Impossible," one cadet muttered. "How could a primitive species fight off invaders?" another cadet whispered. Rune's voice grew stronger. "I didn't believe him at first. I thought he was lying. But then, I saw it. The proof. I witnessed their power, their courage. the same courage they used to defeat enemies far beyond their understanding. And that is why the galaxy has worked so hard to forget about them. The room was filled with tension. The cadets were no longer laughing. They weren't mocking anymore. They were listening. Rune took a deep breath and looked around the room. Earth was never weak. It was never a myth. And now, it's waking up again. The cadets stared at him, unsure of what to say. Some were in disbelief. Others were afraid. Rune nodded. I will tell you the rest of the story, but not today. Not yet. But remember this, you will soon learn the truth. And when you do, you'll understand why humans were never just stories. They were a warning. As Rune walked out of the academy hall, the young cadets sat in silence. The legends of Earth no longer seemed like myths. The idea of a human fighting and surviving against all odds began to feel too real, too possible. And somewhere, far away on a planet most thought was long dead, humans were watching. They had never left. Commander Rune sat alone in his quarters, staring at the message he had found years ago. The words still echoed in his mind. If you can hear this, we are still here. He couldn't forget the cold feeling that had settled in his chest the first time he had heard that voice. It wasn't just a voice. It was a warning, a call for help. The words were human, but the tone, it was something else, something desperate. That signal had haunted him for months, pushing him to make a decision that would change everything. Many years ago, Rune had been part of a routine mission. The galaxy had grown used to peace after centuries of war. But space, vast and silent, held its own mysteries, hidden away in places even the bravest warriors feared to explore. Rune's ship, the Sentry, had been tasked with investigating a forgotten part of the galaxy, a dead zone where no ships had ventured in decades. It was a place where stars burned out, planets shattered, and only dust remained. But when Rune's crew picked up the signal, everything changed. The signal was weak, almost lost to time. But it was there. It repeated every few minutes. A series of sounds, then a voice. If you can hear this, we are still here. Rune didn't believe it at first. Humans, according to the records, had disappeared long ago. No one even knew where Earth was. Yet here was this message, clear and steady. After some debate, Rune convinced his superiors to allow him to investigate. They gave him only a small team. No one else wanted to be involved. Earth wasn't real. It couldn't be. Still, curiosity drove them forward. The coordinates led them to a planet in the dead zone, a planet that had once been alive, but now was broken, its surface cracked and covered in dust. It was a dead world, just like the stories said. No signs of life, nothing but silence and emptiness. But as Rune's ship approached, he saw something strange. The light. It wasn't a natural light. It was coming from below the surface. What is that? Rune asked, pointing to the glow. The crew stared, unsure. They had been sent to a lifeless world, but now something was changing. Something was waiting. Rune made the decision to land. They touched down on the cracked ground, and as the team suited up and exited the ship, the silence was overwhelming. The wind didn't blow. The ground didn't rumble. It was as if the planet had stopped breathing. They followed the glow to a small cave-like structure, hidden beneath the surface. Rune's heart pounded as they entered, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Inside, there was a man. Not a soldier, not a warrior, but a simple man. His clothes were worn, his face weathered by years of living in this broken world. His eyes met Rune's, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Rune was stunned. He had expected nothing. But here, standing before him, was a human. "You're not supposed to be here," the man said, his voice raspy but clear. "But you found me." The crew stared in disbelief. The stories of Earth had always seemed impossible, but here was a living person, one who had survived in the ruins of a dead world. Rune felt a chill run down his spine. "Who are you?" Rune asked, stepping closer. The man didn't smile, didn't move. He just watched Ruan with those piercing eyes. "I'm Mason," the man said quietly. "I'm the last of Earth." The crew was silent. Ruan wanted to ask more questions, but something about Mason's presence stopped him. There was a strange power in the man's calm, something that made Ruan feel small in comparison. "Why are you here?" Ruan finally asked. "What happened to Earth?" Mason's face hardened. "Earth died, not because we lost, but because we chose to survive. The galaxy didn't want us to." Ruan was confused. "What do you mean?" Mason looked away, his eyes scanning the empty world around them. "The galaxy erased us. They thought we were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They told their people we were a myth. But we were never gone." He paused, his eyes darkened with the weight of memories. "We're still here." Ruan didn't understand. How could humans have survived? The galaxy was filled with far more powerful species, more advanced technologies. And yet here was one man, telling him that Earth was alive, hidden from the galaxy's eyes. Mason stepped forward, his voice low. "I saved you for a reason, Commander. If you really want to know the truth, the galaxy isn't ready for humans. And they will never be ready." Ruan didn't know what to say. He wanted answers, but he could feel the weight of the moment. Mason had spoken the truth, and it was more than Ruan could understand. The pieces were scattered, but the truth was becoming clearer. As Ruan looked at the human before him, he realized that Earth was not a myth. It was not dead. It was waiting. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with that truth. The air was thick with silence as Ruan stared at Mason, the last human. The weight of the conversation hung heavily between them. Mason had said it with such certainty. "We're still here." Yet, how could it be? How could a species, once lost to the stars, still survive in a galaxy that had erased them from history? Ruan felt a chill, but it wasn't from the cold air of the dead planet. It was something deeper, something unsettling that gnawed at him. He had been trained to believe in facts, in evidence. Everything about Mason's story screamed impossible. And yet, here Mason stood, living proof that the stories were true. Ruan didn't know how long they stood in silence. Finally, he spoke. "How are you still alive?" Ruan's voice was low, but it carried an edge of disbelief. Mason looked down at the cracked ground beneath him, then back up at Ruan. There was something in his eyes, sadness mixed with a knowing that Ruan could not yet understand. "We survived," Mason said quietly. "We adapted. We learned to hide. From the galaxy." "How could you hide?" Ruan asked, trying to wrap his mind around the situation. The galaxy was vast. There were billions of ships, countless probes, and technology so advanced that nothing should have gone unnoticed. How could humans have hidden for so long? Mason's face hardened. "We didn't just hide from the galaxy. We hid from the truth that Earth was dangerous." Ruan frowned, stepping closer. "Dangerous? How?" Mason took a long breath before answering, as if the weight of those words had haunted him for years. "Humans don't give up. No matter the odds, no matter the enemy. We fight. We survive. The galaxy feared us because of that." The truth hit Ruan harder than he had expected. He thought he understood fear. He thought he understood war. But what Mason was saying wasn't just about a war fought with weapons. This was something more dangerous. It was a war fought with willpower, determination, and courage. "The galaxy wanted to erase Earth," Mason continued, "not just for its power, but because of what Earth represents. Humanity is unstoppable when we fight for what's right." And they knew that. They knew that if humans were allowed to rise again, they would be a force no one could control. Ruan couldn't deny what Mason was saying. He had already seen it with his own eyes. He had witnessed the courage, the strength of this human before him. The stories of Earth's wars, those were not just stories. They were warnings. For the first time, Ruan felt a deep sense of regret. He had dismissed the warnings, thought them to be nothing but old tales. He had believed in the galaxy's history, in its version of the truth. But Mason was showing him a different reality, one that terrified him. "So, the galaxy decided to erase us?" Mason asked, almost as if answering his own question. "They decided the truth was too dangerous. They told everyone we were gone. But the truth is, we never left." Ron's mind raced as he processed everything Mason had said. This wasn't just about a lost planet. It was about a lost species, a species that had been hidden for so long, waiting for the right moment to return. Ron's heart began to beat faster, the weight of this knowledge pressing down on him. "But why now?" Ron asked. "Why did you reach out to me?" Mason turned and slowly walked towards the edge of the cave, where a faint light shone through a crack in the wall. He stopped and looked back at Ron. "Because we need your help. The galaxy is changing. We are changing. The old powers are crumbling, and soon, humanity will be ready to stand tall again." Ron's mind swirled. The galaxy had known peace for so long. It had been a place of order, of rules, of power. But what Mason was saying was more than just a threat. It was a promise. If humanity returned, if Earth re-emerged, the balance of the galaxy would be shattered. Old alliances would break. New wars would rise. "What do you want me to do?" Ron asked, his voice almost a whisper. The gravity of the situation was beginning to sink in. Mason turned back to him, his eyes hard and serious. "Tell them," Mason said. "Tell the galaxy that humans are alive, and we're coming." For the first time in his life, Commander Ron felt the weight of the universe on his shoulders. He had always been a soldier, a warrior, someone who followed orders. But this was different. This was more than a mission. It was a turning point in the galaxy's history. Mason's words rang in Ron's ears. The galaxy had feared humans for a reason. And now, after all these years, the galaxy would face the consequences of their mistake. As Ron stared out at the dark sky above, he couldn't help but wonder just how many more humans were out there. Waiting, watching, ready to rise. The stars seemed to shine a little less brightly as Commander Ron left the cave. The quiet hum of the ship was the only sound as he sat in the cockpit, staring at the vast emptiness of space. His mind was a whirlwind. Mason's words replayed over and over again in his head. "Tell them. Tell the galaxy that humans are alive. And we're coming." Could he do it? Could he bring the galaxy to its knees with the truth? He had always believed in the rules, in order in the system. But now, that system was unraveling in front of him. He had known peace, a galaxy that was free from the chaos of war, a galaxy where the old battles were forgotten. But Mason had shown him the other side, the side of humanity that had been hidden for centuries. And now, that truth was the most dangerous weapon the universe had ever known. Back aboard the Sentry, Ron contacted his superiors. He had to tell them everything. He couldn't keep this secret any longer. But deep down, he knew it wasn't just the truth that he was sharing. It was a threat. "Commander Ron, we've received your transmission," a familiar voice said from the other end. It was Admiral Trask, his superior, and someone who had always followed protocol. "What's the situation?" Ron took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. He could already feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. The truth was dangerous. He had to be careful how he approached this. "Admiral, I found the last human," Ron said, his voice steady but carrying a hidden urgency. There was a pause. Ron could sense the confusion on the other end. "What do you mean, Commander?" "The humans are extinct. We've seen no signs of their existence for centuries." Ron gripped the edge of his chair tightly. "They're not extinct, Admiral. They're alive, and they've been hiding." Another pause. The silence stretched for a few moments too long. Ron could practically feel the galaxy's leaders trying to process what he had said. Finally, Trask spoke again, his voice clipped. "Are you sure of this?" the Admiral asked, his tone suddenly cold. "I've seen him. I've spoken to him. He's one of them, the last of Earth. His name is Mason, and he's alive. There was a sharp intake of breath from Trask. Rune could tell that the Admiral was trying to maintain control, trying to stay calm. But Rune knew the truth would shake the foundation of everything they had ever believed. "Commander, you must be mistaken," Trask said, his voice hard now. "The galaxy has erased all records of Earth. The Council decided long ago that humanity was a threat. This is no longer something we discuss." Rune's heart raced. He had expected this reaction, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. He knew the galaxy's leaders had buried the truth, but now they were trying to cover it up. "It's not a mistake, Admiral," Rune pressed. "I saw it with my own eyes. The humans are not just a story. They survived. And they're coming back." There was a long silence. Then Trask spoke again, his voice colder than before. "Commander, I strongly advise you to forget what you've seen. You will say nothing of this to anyone. This is an order." Rune's jaw clenched. He knew the consequences of defying an order, especially one from someone as powerful as Admiral Trask. But this wasn't just any order. This was a cover-up. The truth was too dangerous for them to let out. If the galaxy knew humans were still out there, the entire balance of power would shift. "I can't do that, Admiral," Rune said, his voice unwavering. "The galaxy needs to know the truth. The people need to know. Earth is still out there, and we can't just ignore that anymore." Trask's voice came through the calm, low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you're saying, Commander. The galaxy will crumble if we let this out. There are forces at work that will stop you from speaking, forces you do not understand." Rune could hear the threat in Trask's words, but he didn't flinch. "I don't care. I'm not hiding the truth anymore. The humans are not gone, and I'm going to make sure the galaxy knows it." Rune ended the transmission before Trask could say anything else. The silence in the cockpit was deafening as he stared at the comm screen, the weight of his decision sinking in. He had defied an order. He had put himself, and the crew, at risk. But there was no going back now. The truth was out there, and he had seen it with his own eyes. He couldn't pretend it wasn't real. Hours passed. Rune sat in his quarters, unable to sleep, his mind racing. He knew the stakes. He knew the galaxy would fight to keep the truth buried, but the galaxy couldn't stop what was already in motion. He had awakened something bigger than himself. The door to his quarters slid open, and Rune turned to see Lieutenant Zara, his trusted officer, standing in the doorway. Her face was serious, but there was something else in her eyes, a hint of worry. "Commander, we've received new orders from Admiral Trask," Zara said, her voice tense. Rune stood, his heart pounding. "What are the orders?" Zara hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "The sentry is to return to Volaris immediately. You're to report to the Council." Rune's stomach tightened. The Council was the highest authority in the galaxy. If the Council was involved, things were about to escalate. "They're going to silence me," Rune whispered, realizing the gravity of the situation. Zara's eyes softened. "We knew the risks when you decided to speak the truth." Rune nodded grimly. He had made his choice, and now there would be no turning back. As the sentry turned towards Volaris, Rune looked out at the stars once more. The galaxy was about to change, and whether it was ready or not, humanity was coming back. The sentry docked on Volaris, the capital planet of the Galactic Council. It was a place of marble towers and shining cities, an oasis of order in a galaxy that often felt chaotic. But today, there was a different energy in the air. Today, Commander Rune was about to face the Council. Inside the ship, Rune stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his uniform. He couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The galaxy's power brokers were not known for their mercy. The truth he had uncovered about humanity wasn't just a piece of lost history. It was a weapon. And weapons, in the hands of those who feared them, often led to silencing. He glanced over at Lieutenant Zora, who was standing by the door, her face tense. She had been by his side through it all. But even she knew the gravity of what was about to happen. "You're ready, Commander," she said quietly, though her voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Ruan nodded. "I don't know if anyone is ready for this, but it's too late to turn back." As they entered the council hall, the tension in the air grew palpable. The council members, the ruling elite of the galaxy, sat on raised platforms, their eyes cold and calculating. At the center was Councillor Xurin, the leader of the Galactic Council, known for her sharp intellect and even sharper disposition. She locked eyes with Ruan as he stepped forward. "Commander Ruan," Councillor Xurin began, her voice steady and commanding, "you have made a grave accusation. You claim that humans are not extinct, that they have been hiding, that they are returning. Do you have any proof of these claims?" Ruan stood tall, his mind racing. The weight of the galaxy's fate seemed to rest on his shoulders. "I've seen it with my own eyes, Counselor," Ruan said, his voice clear but filled with the unease of the situation. "I met the last human. His name is Mason. He's alive, and he's not the only one. Earth's survivors are out there, waiting." A murmur spread throughout the chamber. The council members exchanged looks, some with disbelief, others with fear. Ruan could see the wheels turning in their minds. This was the truth they had been trying to bury. Councillor Xurin raised a hand, silencing the room. Her eyes narrowed as she studied Ruan, and the weight of her gaze felt like it was crushing him. "And you expect us to believe this, Commander?" she asked, her voice soft, but filled with a dangerous calm. "Do you expect us to accept that an entire species has been hiding from us all these years? That a race we thought was gone is suddenly ready to return and take its place in the galaxy?" Ruan didn't back down. "Yes, Counselor. Because it's the truth. The humans are resilient. They never gave up, and they never died." Councillor Xurin stood up, her voice rising. "You are treading on dangerous ground, Commander. The galaxy has moved on from the war with Earth. We've built peace. We've built alliances. What you're saying threatens everything. You've made a bold accusation, but the galaxy will not take your word for it." A hush fell over the room. "We need more than your word," Xurin continued. "We need evidence. We need proof." Ruan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected this to be easy, but the Council was now demanding something more, something that could prove humanity's survival. Mason's words echoed in his mind. "The galaxy is coming to a point of change. But not just any change. Humanity will rise again. I can provide proof," Ruan said, the determination in his voice rising. "I've seen Mason. I've spoken to him. And if you give me the chance, I'll take you to him. I'll show you that humans are alive, and that Earth is not gone." Councillor Xurin's face hardened as she considered Ruan's words. She motioned to a nearby officer, who stepped forward with a datapad. "Very well," Xurin said, her voice a calculated mix of authority and suspicion. "You will return to this planet with us. If you are telling the truth, if your story is accurate, we will confirm it. If you are lying—" She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. The consequences of lying to the Council were severe. For Ruan, it would mean not just the end of his career, but the end of his life. The Sentry took off once again, this time with the Council members aboard. As the ship ascended into the dark sky, Ruan sat in silence, his mind racing. He knew he was walking a dangerous path. The evidence was there, but how would the Council react? They had already decided what the universe had to believe about Earth and its people. The truth would change everything. It could tear apart the delicate peace the galaxy had built for centuries. Zora stood next to him, her face unreadable. "What happens if they don't believe you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ruan turned to her, his eyes hardening. "Then we fight. We fight for the truth. The galaxy can't ignore this any longer. Earth is alive, and they will have to face that reality. Hours later, the sentry arrived at the hidden planet where Mason had led them. The council members disembarked first, their eyes scanning the surroundings with suspicion. Ruin led them through the rocky terrain, his heart pounding. The truth was just a few steps away, but so was his potential undoing. As they neared the cave where Mason had been hiding, the tension in the air grew. Ruin could feel the sweat on his brow, the heavy burden of the moment pressing on him. If Mason was here, if the council saw him, it would either validate everything he had said or seal his fate. "It's time," Ruin said softly. They entered the cave, and there, standing under the dim light of the galaxy's last untouched planet, was Mason. The humans, the truth, it was all in front of the council now. "You were right," Ruin said quietly. "The galaxy needs to hear this. You can't hide anymore." Mason nodded grimly. "Let them hear it," he said. Councillor Exurin stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Mason. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, Exurin spoke. "I never thought I would see this day. But now that it's here, we have a decision to make." The silence inside the cave was deafening. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present. Councillor Exurin's gaze never left Mason, who stood with his arms crossed, his eyes steady and unflinching. He was the living proof of humanity's survival. And yet, there was a palpable tension in the air. The council had finally seen him, the last human. Exurin's lips tightened as she examined Mason, her face a mask of controlled emotion. The others in the council stood behind her, their expressions unreadable, but Ruin could feel their unease. "So this is the last of your kind." Exurin's voice broke the silence, cold but curious. "You've been hiding all this time, and now you expect us to believe that humanity is returning." Mason stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the council. "We've been surviving, Counselor. Hiding, yes. But now we're ready to show the galaxy that Earth hasn't fallen, that we're still here, and we're still strong." Exurin's brow furrowed as she looked Mason up and down. "Surviving, yes, but we cannot ignore the consequences of what you're saying. If humanity returns, it will upset the balance of power in the galaxy. You would be a threat to everything we've worked for." A murmur rippled through the other council members. Some exchanged nervous glances, others held their ground. But no one spoke up. The implications of what Mason had just revealed were staggering. Humanity was alive. And not just that, humanity was coming back. Ruin stood at the edge of the group, his heart racing. He knew Exurin's words were true. If humanity returned, it would change everything. The alliances that held the galaxy together, the fragile peace they had all fought for, would be shattered. The galaxy was not ready for what was coming. "The galaxy may not be ready for us," Mason said, his voice low but firm. "But that doesn't matter. We've been gone for too long, and now we've come to take our place again." Exurin took a slow step back, her gaze shifting to Ruin. "Commander, you led us here. You say you've seen the proof. Now, tell us, what should we do?" Ruin swallowed hard. His entire mission had led to this moment. His gut told him the truth, but the weight of the council's power and the potential consequences of Mason's words were impossible to ignore. "The truth is, Counselor, the humans are no longer the threat they once were. They've evolved. They've survived. If anything, they should be allies." Ruin's voice was steady, though his thoughts were spinning. "But I understand the fear. The galaxy hasn't seen humanity in centuries. It's not going to be easy." Exurin raised an eyebrow, her eyes narrowing. "You think they should be allies?" Her voice was sharp, as if testing Ruin's resolve. "You believe we should accept them back into the fold as if nothing has changed, as if Earth never tried to conquer the galaxy." Ruin's eyes met hers, unflinching. "I believe they deserve a chance. We've seen their strength, and we need to remember what we've all forgotten. The universe isn't just about power and control. It's about survival, and humanity has survived." The room grew colder as Xirin turned her gaze to Mason. "What do you want, then?" she asked. "If humanity is truly alive and ready to return, what is it you expect from us?" Mason didn't hesitate. "What we want is simple. A seat at the table. We want to be part of the galaxy again. Not as enemies, but as equals. The same way everyone else has a place here." For a long moment, Xirin said nothing. The other council members seemed to shift uncomfortably as the weight of Mason's words settled in. Rune could feel the tension rising. They were on the edge of something far bigger than they realized. Finally, Xirin spoke, her voice colder than ever. "You think this will be that easy?" She glanced at her fellow council members. "There are many factions in the galaxy, some who will see humanity's return as a threat. We've spent centuries ensuring that the galaxy remains in balance. One more species, one as dangerous as humanity, could tip the scales forever." Rune stepped forward, his voice firm. "Then we'll prove it. We'll prove humanity is a force for good. We'll show you that we've changed. But you have to let us. If we're going to survive, we need the chance to prove ourselves." Xirin remained silent, clearly weighing the decision. "You ask for a seat at the table, but I fear what you're really asking for is power. The power to disrupt everything we've built." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook, and a loud rumble echoed through the cave. Everyone froze, their attention snapping toward the entrance. Rune's heart skipped a beat as he realized what was happening. Outside, a fleet of ships appeared in the sky, dark shapes silhouetted against the stars. They'd moved swiftly, blocking out the stars like a storm approaching. The unmistakable insignia of the Crimson Marauders, a known enemy faction, was visible on their hulls. "What is this?" Xirin demanded, her voice a mix of confusion and alarm. "Who dares to attack now?" Mason stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he watched the ships. "That's not just an attack. It's a message. Someone doesn't want us to return, and they'll stop at nothing to make sure we stay hidden." Rune's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. We have to act fast. The sound of the Marauder ships drawing closer was deafening, their weapons primed and ready. The council members scrambled to take positions, but it was clear they were unprepared for this sudden assault. "We need to fight back," Rune said, turning to Mason. "If we're going to prove humanity's worth, we have to show them we're ready. Together." Mason nodded, his eyes burning with determination. "Then let's make it clear. The galaxy can't stop us. We've survived too long to be silenced now." The battle for humanity's future had just begun. The air crackled with tension as the Crimson Marauders closed in on the cave. Their massive ships blotted out the stars above, casting an ominous shadow over the group gathered on the ground. The council was scrambling to respond, but their ranks were shaken. Commander Rune, Mason, and the others knew that this wasn't just an attack. It was a statement, a warning from those who feared humanity's return. Rune stood at the edge of the cave entrance, his hand gripping the hilt of his weapon. The sentry was on standby, but it wasn't equipped for a battle of this scale. This was bigger than anyone had anticipated. Mason stepped forward, his face determined. "This isn't just a fight for survival. It's a fight for our place in this galaxy. We've come back for one reason, to prove humanity belongs here. And we're not going down without a fight." Councillor Xirin, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but edged with concern. "We are not equipped to face this threat. The Marauders are ruthless. They won't stop until they have wiped us out. If humanity truly wants to prove itself, you must help us. You must fight beside us." Rune turned to Mason. The question in Xirin's words was clear. Was humanity ready to stand with the rest of the galaxy, or would they be crushed by those who sought to keep them hidden forever? Mason didn't hesitate. "We didn't come this far to hide. If we're going to prove humanity's place in the galaxy, it starts now. We fight together." Suddenly, the sky lit up with bursts of energy As the first Marauder ships fired their weapons, the ground shook beneath them, and the sound of heavy artillery echoed through the cave. The council members scattered, taking cover, but Run, Mason, and Zara were already moving. "We need to disable their weapons," Run shouted over the chaos. "Mason, Zara, you're with me. Kexerin, keep the rest of the council safe. We'll take down their shields and make a push for the command ship." The Marauders' ships were equipped with powerful shields, and their weapons had already begun to tear into the planet's surface. But Mason knew that if they could disrupt the Marauders' central control, they could turn the tide of the battle. The three of them ran toward the sentry, their path illuminated by the flashes of energy blasts from the Marauder ships. They reached the ship just as it took off, soaring into the air to engage the Marauder fleet. "We'll need to get in close," Mason said, his voice steady. "Run, you're with me. We'll take out their central control. Zara, cover us." Inside the sentry, Run and Mason worked together, pulling up the Marauders' fleet data on the ship's console. They had only one shot at this. If they failed, the Marauder ships would continue to destroy everything in their path. Run's fingers flew across the controls, his mind focused. "We've got their coordinates. I'm locking on now." Mason's face was set in a determined frown as he watched the targeting system. "Once we're in position, it's all or nothing. No turning back." The sentry raced through the sky, dodging fire from the Marauder fleet as it closed in on their command ship. The larger ship, the Crimson Flag, was the heart of the Marauder fleet. It controlled the other ships, and if they could disable it, the rest would fall apart. As they neared the flagship, a blast shook the sentry, sending the ship into a violent roll. "We've got incoming," Zara shouted from the comms. "Hold on," Rune yelled, pulling the ship back on course. He had only one chance to make the shot. The flagship's central core loomed ahead, protected by layers of shields. Rune pulled the trigger. A massive energy beam fired from the sentry, cutting through the shields and hitting the core. The explosion was blinding, and for a moment, everything seemed to go silent. Then the flagship's shields flickered and went down, its engines sputtering. "We've done it," Rune shouted. "Now's our chance. Take them down." Outside, the battle raged on. The Marauder ships, now without the guidance of their flagship, began to fall apart. One by one, they were taken down by the sentry and the remaining ships from the Council fleet. But the war wasn't over yet. The Marauders still fought, desperate to keep their hold on the galaxy. Mason turned to Rune, his expression fierce. "We need to send a message. Show them that humanity will not be ignored, that we fight for our place in this galaxy." Rune nodded. "We'll make it clear." As the sentry moved to engage the remaining Marauder ships, the sound of weapons fire filled the air once more. But the tide had turned. The Council ships, now energized by the loss of the Marauder flagship, moved in to help finish the job. Rune, Mason, and Zara led the charge, taking down the remaining Marauder fighters with precision and speed. The sentry darted through the sky, evading fire and retaliating with devastating accuracy. It wasn't long before the last of the Marauder ships were destroyed, their wreckage scattered across the sky. The battle was over. The Council gathered once more, their eyes wide in disbelief. They had witnessed humanity's strength firsthand. Mason, Rune, and the others had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. Councillor Exerin stood before them, her face a mixture of respect and awe. "You've done what we never thought possible. You've proven your worth, Commander Rune, and you've shown the galaxy that humanity has not only survived, but has thrived." Mason stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "We're not here to take over. We're here to survive, to thrive, and to be part of this galaxy once again. We are no threat. We are allies." The galaxy would never be the same again. The truth had been revealed. Humanity was alive, and it would no longer be a secret. And as Mason and Rune looked out at the stars, they knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. The end.